Thanks for joining this session today. I'm just going to cover MigrationFX version 2.0, so the next major release of the MigrationFX software. So we'll take you through that. And the running order for today is I'll give you the usual kind of house rules, just where the exits are, that usual kind of stuff. Then a little bit about UnifiedFX, just really as a reminder more than anything else. And then the meat of the content is really about what's new. A quick summary and the main points we'll cover is the fact we've enhanced the architecture, so that includes 64-bit support and the ability to handle better performance with multiple clusters at the same time. We've got a great feature we're really pleased with. It allows you to customize both phone and button templates. I'll do my best to take you through that. Another thing that's been requested a lot is the ability to support sidecars as part of the migration, so that's now in there, and I'll obviously explain that. One thing that we discovered is, we've had lots and lots of phones being migrated in the field, is the handling of intercom lines could be better, so we've improved that. Another thing that we've added, just general simplicity sort of stuff, is a concept of a category field that you can basically tag phones with. So I'll show you how that works. We've also, again, more feedback from all the migrations that people have done, is we've actually come up with a lot simpler, more effective form of topology lookup, which I'll try to explain. It's a little bit kind of complex, but you just need to kind of trust us ultimately that the research that we've done, this will be a lot smoother, and it's primarily based on some really good suggestions and feedback we've had as well. So we realise that this is a much better way of doing it. And then finally, we've extended one of the features that allows you to search by extension number to also search by the extension mask, and I'll take you through why. And there's kind of like a demo and a Q&A at the end, but we'll see how the questions go, etc. So in terms of so it's nice and simple. This session is being recorded, so to get a copy, just email sales@unifiedfx.com and we'll get that back to you. If you do submit any questions, please use the Q&A panel and make sure you submit it to all panelists, just in case. I'm not very good at talking and typing at the same time, so maybe one of the guys on the session might be able to reply whilst I'm still carrying on. But I'll do my best if there's any outstanding questions to catch up with them all at the end anyway. So in terms of just this is a slide we run through every time, just as a refresher for everybody in case they're not familiar with UnifiedFX, is a quick rundown on the three main products that we have. So PhoneView is our original product, been around for a while now and used quite literally by millions of Cisco phones are managed under that product, and it's the most powerful and only Cisco compatible endpoint management solution out there. So it's our kind of flagship product effectively. What we also have, is something we created a little while ago and it's gone down really well, is a really nice and simple, easy to install, very modern and fresh wallboard for UCCX. And we architected it from the ground up to be incredibly fast. It is by far the fastest wallboard application available because of how we've built it. So if you have a UCCX system, it's worth checking that out. Just install it yourself and give it a try. And then finally, obviously what we're going to cover in more detail in this session is we've got MigrationFX, which has all got all the badges in terms of Cisco compatible and part of the Solution Center program. More importantly, which I won't really focus here because hopefully most people are aware of it, is part of Cisco's trade-in program, TMP program, so you can get it for free for a year for a slight license just by trading in 100 phones. But that's probably why a few of you might be on this session because you've done that already. So in terms of MigrationFX, it is incredibly simple to use in terms of replacing phones. It covers other scenarios too, as well as converting the DX model type between Android and CE. And it also works in a provisioning scenario too, if you're rolling out handsets in a similar way to the Cisco Taps feature. And actually something that we'll realise that a lot of people can use this for is effectively we could class as a competitive upgrade from another vendor such as Avaya, Nortel, etc. Sorry, like Nortel's the same company, Mitel, etc., and get them over to Cisco if you can get all that old data out of their old system, bring them in as a back device into your CUCM system. You can use MigrationFX to actually deploy those back profiles out nice and easily just directly at the handset. So that's just a quick rundown of the products that we have. So in terms of MigrationFX 2.0, one key thing that we've done from an architecture perspective is we've moved it to 64-bit support. This is not a simple thing, but very much worthwhile. And the fundamental reason for it is whenever you have a 32-bit application, it's restricted to technically only using the first 2 gig of memory. You can actually only technically address 4 gig, but certainly the way Windows works only really gives the first 2 gig of user memory for your applications. So that causes issues on for scalability. So that unlocks, the full system memory, which is great, and a few of our larger customers have been able to take advantage of that. It's the same MSI as before. From an installation point of view, you can install the 64-bit new MSI straight on top of the old one, which is 32-bit, and it's a seamless upgrade. And what it'll also do, if you do, you can still install it in a 32-bit system. It will just run in 32-bit mode, but obviously we recommend running it on a 64-bit platform to take advantage of it. Another architectural enhancement is better support for multi-cluster integrations, primarily from a performance point of view. Architecturally, we've always been able to integrate with multiple clusters at the same time, but there's quite a lot of processing that happens with each cluster in terms of updating and refreshing the data, both gathering the data from CUCM as well as synchronizing that data with our data store. And it basically got to a bit of a bottleneck where if you start the system up and you have several clusters, they're all kind of fighting to do the same task at the same time. So what we've now done is stagger those operations, which makes it a lot smoother. What we've also done is we've made the kind of data export, where we take the data we get from CUCM and save it to our data store, a lot more effective. We used to kind of have quite a crude model where it exported everything in one go, but now it only does incremental exports to our data store just for data that's changed. So again, more efficiency. And another fundamental change, which is part of this whole update, it's all under the hood effectively, is we've moved from an SQL database to a no SQL database. And the fundamental thing that allows us to do is allow the model, the data that we store, to be really simple and really easy to upgrade and extend in the future, which I'll talk about with some future features, even beyond 2.0 that I want to highlight. So that just unlocks scalability, flexibility from an architecture point of view. So not something you obviously see when you use the product directly, but just something that we've baked into the product for moving forward with really large systems and integrations. The next one is my favorite feature that we've added, and I'll do my best to explain this because it's a little bit complicated. But normally, when you migrate a phone using MigrationFX, and in order to make life really simple, we just generate, where necessary, phone and button templates, because you have to have the right model of phone and button template. Whenever you migrate, you have to have a phone template that basically plugs the gap of any settings on the new phone that don't exist on the old. You know, if you're going from a skinny phone to a SIP phone protocol type, for example, there are some SIP-specific parameters that won't be on the old skinny phone, and that's where the phone template comes in. And obviously, we don't really have anything to work with, so we just basically take default values when we do that normally. But it means that out of the box, it's really quick and simple to migrate. But what it might mean is you have a little bit of post-processing work to do, you know, so you might want to normalize some settings, change SIP profiles and things like that back to what you would normally use. So the phone might be, you know, online and converted and migrated and up and running, etc. But it might not be the exact configuration that you require. Just depends on your environment and, you know, and how specific you are. But what we wanted to do was minimize and maybe even potentially eliminate any post-processing tidy up, so to speak. And the way that we've done that is we've created this concept of a migration phone template and a migration button template. And I'll explain them in terms of how you set them up. But ultimately, when you specify, for example, a migration phone template, so by default there's none, and we'll just create one automatically with the defaults. But if you specify the name of a phone template that we use when we migrate, then that means any settings you've got in that phone template that we would normally have just had a default value for because it's missing, it will take it from the template that you specify. But the important thing is you can set this at a per device level, but it's dead easy to do it in bulk as well. So you could select, you could filter to device pool, select all devices in that device pool, and assign the same phone template to that. Or you could say choose a particular device pool plus a set of models, because the old model's got to go to a particular new model, and you can kind of do that nice and easily in the interface. And I'll obviously show you that in the demo portion. But what that means is, when it comes to a phone template, you can specify one before the migration, have it all prepared and ready with whatever settings that you want. Then when it does migrate, it will use that template instead of generating one. And that eliminates, from a phone template perspective, any kind of post-processing work that you would need to do. But we also have done the same thing for button templates. So the same thing applies. We have a concept of a migration button template. You enter the name of the button template that the new phone model is supposed to pick up. And again, you can do that per device. And when you specify that migration button template, when that phone migrates, rather than us doing that one-to-one button mapping, which obviously is nice and simple and very effective, if you wish, you can customize it. Now, this means that you can do a number of things. You can override the default naming convention that we have. So anybody who's done migrations with our software will probably be familiar with the way that we structure that naming. And obviously put a lot of thought into that, and it's really useful. But again, if you want to be specific about your naming conventions, then you would have to do post-processing to tidy them up. But no longer would that be necessary, because you can specify the appropriate names, button template, for example, before you do the migration. Also, what this enables you to do is to start consolidating some of your configurations as part of the migration. Again, you don't have to do it after the fact. So which means that, imagine you've got a whole myriad of button templates. Maybe you've let some users loose with the individual button layouts, and they've gone in, they've edited their phones, and rearranged the buttons and all that good stuff. Maybe there's just been lots of different administrators on the system, and they've done different things in different ways. They've maybe not used standard templates, and just to get what the user wants, they've created an individual template. And that's a great feature that you can do that, but there's times where you want to kind of consolidate these things and normalize them and make sure it's all neat and tidy. And that's exactly what this also enables you to do, because again, the same thing, you go ahead, you create your phone button template, for example, or a range of them with particular layouts that you're looking for against the appropriate new models that people are going to get. You set those migration button templates against the appropriate devices that you want them to pick up. And again, when they migrate, it will pick up that migration button template, assign that to the phone, and it'll have exactly the configuration you want it to have. And that means all those individual templates kind of get removed. Well, they don't get deleted. We don't delete them automatically. That's still your job, but they kind of get dereferenced effectively because you're using those consolidated button templates, etc. after the fact. Obviously, any simple example, as we've got the bullet point there, is instead of doing one-to-one button mappings, it makes a lot easier to control more complex situations where maybe get a 6-button phone going to a 5-button phone. Now, normally we just keep the first 5 buttons and the 6th button gets dropped. But if your particular layouts, you want to, lose the 4th button or the 3rd button or something like that, we couldn't do that automatically, but this now allows you to do it just by creating that appropriate template and specifying it against the devices. Another capability is to also consolidate product-specific configuration. So what happens when our phone migrates is effectively it's a like-for-like copy. It copies all fields from the old phone to the new phone in effect. But as I said earlier, there's some gaps in there and they get filled in by the phone template. But there's another portion of a device configuration at the kind of bottom of the device page, which is called the product-specific configuration. There's a whole myriad of settings in there, and they're quite difficult to manage generally, actually, because how they're structured. Now, you can always use things like a common phone profile, which are a more consistent way of doing it. But if for any reason you just want to go down to an individual device level and set specific product configurations, you can now do that, because if you go to your migration phone template and in the product specific configuration setting, anything you set there that doesn't exist on the old phone will now get pulled from that phone template that you specify. So you've got complete control over that section as well. Now, an important point, as I've got noted down the bottom here, is if you do specify a migration phone template or a migration button template, and when your actual migration happens and the model of the new phone doesn't match the model of the phone or button template you specify, it will fail the migration. So that's a deliberate choice we've made because we could just fall back and generate one, but then if you've gone to the effort to specify a template, it would get confusing if we suddenly ignored it and did something else. However, you can track all that back nice and easily because we've got the history page which shows you all the migrations. They cover them up green and red for the ones that are successful and failed. And you can just look at the red ones and look at the log, and you'll see exactly, it'll tell you in there the reason why it failed, and that will obviously explain that the model mismatch was there. So obviously you can just go back, correct the template, whichever way you're doing it, and rerun the migration. And when I say rerun, you have to either do it in the web admin interface and submit it individually, or get the person to submit it again on the actual IT phone. Either way would work. So that's the phone button templates from a kind of feature set perspective. In terms of using them, I've got a little slide here. So by design, we always like to keep these things as simple as we can. It's a nice simple three-step thing. So you select one or more devices. On the screen grab here, I've just got the one selected, but you just kind of hold Shift-click on a range of checkboxes here to select them. And once you've got one or more devices selected, you simply click the edit button there. And once you click that, you get this kind of dialog form that pops up. If you've only selected one phone, it'll actually populate the values in there. So this is a nice edit, which is nice and simple. But if you select multiple, these fields will be blank, and whatever you put in there will overwrite any existing values that are there. So it's kind of a bulk update, effectively. So you do it singularly, or you can do it with hundreds of devices and set them. So that's how you actually specify them. What you might spot, and I'll tell you about that in a little minute, is also this concept of a category. So this single form here allows you to fill in 3 values. If you leave a value alone, it won't change, obviously, and you can just edit 1 or 2 values, and just those ones will update. Okay, so on to sidecar support. So normally what you'd have to do if you're migrating a phone and the new phone has a sidecar is after the phone migrates, all the buttons would be there, including the sidecar buttons, but the sidecar itself effectively wouldn't power on because at the device level, you have to tell it the sidecar exists. Now, the thing about it is, that's just a feature that Cisco didn't include natively in Call Manager when they were migrating phones. It's always been on our to-do list to close that feature gap, and that's exactly what this is. So what this means is, it's not going to copy the sidecar from the old and new phone, and it actually can't because there's different model sidecars, obviously, for different model phones, so we could never really know that. Plus, you might go from 2 sidecars of the older type, like 7814, etc., because they've got less buttons on them, to 1 key entry module because it's got lots more buttons and paging capability. So you're not necessarily going to go from 2 sidecars to 2 sidecars anyway, so you need full control over that. So you get 2 ways you can handle sidecars. Option 1 is you can use the migration phone template I was just describing, and one of the things that you do inside that phone template is you specify the sidecar configuration, 1 module, 2 module, etc. And that particular template, you set it against the device or devices inside the interface. That same, select the phone, click edit, and specify the phone template name. And once you've got that set, once that migration happens, as the rules dictate, it will basically use that phone template. And because it's got sidecars on it, we copy those sidecars over to the new phone. So they will just boot up nice and simple as you would expect them to. We were actually in Cisco Live Berlin last week, and that was actually what we're demonstrating to a number of people, was swapping out an old Symphony 61 with a sidecar on it to a new 8800 series with the key entry module, and it was great fun. Chunky phones obviously, but it was just great, that full configuration, including the sidecar moving over. The second option you have is if you don't want to go down to the per device level, we've actually got a kind of cruder and simpler way, which is kind of easy to use. And this is part of existing logic we had anyway. And we have a concept of what we call a source template. And a source template is part of our naming convention. And if you have a template that starts with the word source in capitals, dash, and then the model, dash, and then protocol, dash, and then the words migration template with a space. So if that particular named phone template exists and we spot that, then we will use that template to migrate. So if there's any sidecar configurations on that, they get copied over and used from there. So that means you can just create one template, and as long as the new phone goes to that particular model, it will always get that sidecar configuration copied over as well. So it's just your choice. Personally, I think it would be better to use the per device level for more control, but we deliberately left it nice and flexible so you can work whichever way suits you. The next one is handling of intercom lines. So as I was mentioning, this is based on feedback from the field. In terms of the number of people and the types of migrations that we've had, it's been quite extensive now because the products have been out for a little while. There were lots of customers using it, quite literally doing thousands of phones at a time in some occasions, and running against some really large systems. The largest ones I can think of are about 80-odd thousand phones, and in fact, well, I probably can't say who this is actually, it's a wee bit early, but another company who have quite literally 200,000 phones are just starting to use the software as well. So you can see why we've been focused on the scalability and architecture side. But basically, based on all these migrations that have happened, one of the things that has kind of caught people out a little bit was if the old phone has an intercom line, one of the restrictions of an intercom line is that it cannot exist in more than one device at a time, so it can't be shared between two devices. And because by default MigrationFX makes a copy of the old phone, that breaks that rule, and it actually in that case causes the migration to fail because we attempt to make a copy of the old phone to take a backup of it, and because it has an intercom line, it fails at that point. So that's obviously a bit of a nuisance. The workaround was basically to disable system-wide that keep old phone setting. So that would basically just delete the phone as it migrates. But that's a bit of a nuisance because that's obviously system-wide. The other way would just be to remove the intercom line before the migration as well, or just do it manually. But we wanted a better way. So what the new rule that we've added does is when you go to migrate, if it detects that the phone has an intercom line, it basically skips the backup step because technically we can't back up anyway, and then it just just migrates the phone without a backup. But that's only for that one phone because it detected that it had an intercom line on it. So it just makes it a lot more simpler. It effectively means it's seamless because it will just work now rather than failing, and then you have to go away and rectify it. So for anybody that's got intercom lines, that will obviously make it a lot simpler for them. So the next one I want to cover is this new category field that we've added. Now, this is really just an admin feature. There's nothing, specifically about migrations for this in reality, but it's a concept that we've kind of copied from one of our other products, PhoneView, and it's something that was asked for a lot originally when we brought PhoneView out, and it actually took us a little while to come up with a good solution for it. Technically in PhoneView, it's called a custom group, and we could have used that name, but we thought it was a little bit confusing, and we think category is better. Might not be the best, but it's certainly better. And what effectively is a free-form string allows you to effectively tag individual phones. It's just a single word. You can have spaces and things in it, obviously, but it's just a single field, so you can't set multiple categories on one device. That's something we're looking at, and that would be an actual tag, so you could tag multiple properties, but that's a future thing, but not really necessary, to be honest with, because the category feature's useful enough. But what a category means is you can just, set a value against one or more devices, and once you've got that value set, it's just stored internally in our data store, and it makes it available for filtering. So I've got a little kind of tiny little screen grab here, the bottom right-hand corner, and that's a little section from the filter panel on the phones page. And that means all you do is click the tick box against managers, and that's a custom category. It's being tagged to 5 phones in that case, and only those 5 manager phones would be listed. So that just gives you a lot of flexibility. And the reason why we did it, a lot of people are really good and well structured and have things like device pools and regions they can use to kind of get to subsets of devices. But if that's not quite useful enough for you, you need to get a bit more specific subsets of device pools or cross device pools and things like that. That's where the category comes in handy. So if you think about the category ability to, tag those phones, so to speak, means that you can kind of group those devices with your own information. And then that comes really useful when it comes to setting those phone and button templates that you're going to use for migrating, because you'll probably correlate them. You have like manager secretaries, sidecar phones. That's the type of categories you can do, just so you can easily identify them once you've picked the ones you're going to group together. And then you can quickly filter to just those devices and set the appropriate phone and button templates on them. So that's one of the reasons why we did it. Okay, so the next one is to try and explain what we've changed in terms of the topology lookup. Now, fundamentally, we've simplified it. And what we've effectively done, and this is something in hindsight we should have done from day one, actually, but we're there now. And what that effectively is ability to just look at current topology data rather than historical. And the way the topology database works is it's running all the time. It's gathering all the switch port and phone information, etc. So it knows at any point in time within a half-hour cycle, it will know what's plugged in where. Now, let's just say you're not migrating and you're just moving phones around for normal add, move, change reasons. We keep a record of all those movements, so if you move a phone from one port to another, we'll get a copy of that. So maybe at the beginning of running MigrationFX, it won't really matter because everything's kind of steady state. But as we've found, as people have been using the software longer and over time, sometimes that historical data has kind of got in the way a little bit. And it means that, by trying to be almost kind of too clever by providing that full history, what it's effectively meant is some of the matches that we've listed for doing like a zero-touch migration have been irrelevant effectively, are not relevant to what's happening. So, for example, that third bullet point there, a phone that's moved to a new port may still be listed against the old port, but a new port as well. It's not gone off the system anymore. It's still alive somewhere else, but it's not really relevant for an old to new swap, if you know what I mean. So therefore, by using the current topology data and non-historical, that just means you don't have the historical data doesn't get in the way. I guess that's what I'm trying to kind of say. However, we do value that historical data, so we still have it. And as I kind of say there, it's still saved in the data store. We're still recording all the history there. And also, if you want to, you can still operate the same way. So if you want to go back to the original historical topology method, then you just go to the parameters page and tick use topology history in the new version. So it's a change of default behavior. So once you go to the new version, it will use simplified topology by default. But you can always go back if that was useful to you for whatever reason using the historical version. But we think that will make a lot simpler and smoother from a zero-touch perspective in more mature situations. And then the last kind of feature to mention is the extension mask support. So the search by extension feature, and there's a little screenshot of it down the bottom there, has actually turned out to be really, really popular. There's two reasons for that. One of them is on some situations when zero touch is not possible, that might just be the web server's turned off on the phone, maybe deliberately or not. It might be that the phone model doesn't give us CDP data. There's not many, there's one or two, 793637, 7905, 7912 are the ones that come to mind. So those four phones, which are particularly old, we cannot get topology data from them anyway. And that's where search by extension come in, because when you swap that phone over, because we can't do zero touch just on those couple of models, what it would then prompt you to do is just type in the extension number of the old phone and then migrate from there. What it can also do, in case you're not familiar with this, is it can also provision as well. So if you're just rolling a brand new handset and you want to provision, from a back device or a dummy MAC address, the kind of thing you might have imported from another PBX vendor, an Avaya MyTel system or something like that. So you have all those back devices in there. The provision scenario allows you to also just take the back device, its extension number, and bring that on to that new phone. So again, you don't have to coordinate which phone goes where. It's all done at the endpoint and nice and simply and interactively. However, what we discovered as people have been using that feature is it doesn't handle certain types of complex dial plans, primarily ones that have overlapping DN ranges. So if I had one or two customers where they maybe had, let's just say you get 50 sites and each site has effectively the same dial plan, your extension 100, 101, 102, the next site has 100, 101, 102. And that's nice and simple for consistency, obviously, but it's a bit more complicated for this search by extension feature. But what we've actually done is whenever you search completely seamlessly, no change in the user interface, it also searches the extension mask field. And that typically has, for example, the DDI number for that phone. So if you have all those similar sites for the same dial plan, what will always be different will be the DDI number, obviously. So that leverages that information by also extending the search to include the extension mask field. So again, it's one of these things we like to do it nice and simply, so there's no change in interaction from a user experience perspective. It's just the data that we're searching is extended and just gives you more flexibility. And all you would do is instead of entering the 100 number for the internal DN, just instead enter all or maybe even just a partial amount if it's just enough unique digits in there of the extension number mask, and that'll get you, a subset or the exact device that you're looking at. So a nice simple feature in reality, but should make those more complex scenarios a lot more feasible rather than having to kind of go through a list of 50 odd MAC addresses to choose one. You'll be able to get it more accurately. So that's the feature content. I want to touch on just a little bit briefly, just to actually whet some people's appetite and maybe get a little bit of feedback if there's any in terms of questions, is what we're planning to do is once we realize this concept of a migration phone template and a migration button template, we actually, after we wrote all the code and got it all ready for this release, we actually come up with another idea which is even better, which we call a migration profile. And effectively, the way that we can build that out would allow you to what we call merge old phone information and phone template data. So rather than the kind of default migration mechanism, basically copying everything it can from the old phone and just the gaps from the phone template, instead what you'll be able to do with this new feature that we've figured out is you could cherry pick certain properties not to copy from the old phone, but instead to copy from the phone template. So even if it exists on the old phone, ignore it and take the value from the phone template. So it gives you more granular control over that migrated configuration, allowing further device level consolidation. So we really like that feature. We've got some good ideas for how we're going to build it out. It may actually not take that long, but don't want to commit to anything that puts us under too much pressure. So we think it'll be 3, maybe 6 months time scale. I'll be surprised if we don't have it published and ready before Cisco Live US, but you never know. But that's certainly an easy target for us. In the longer term, and this is mostly based on feedback and all the questions that we've had, they're still kind of tagged there. So just want to remind people who've not forgotten about them. Is we've been asked a number of times about doing software migration, so things like IP communicator to Java. So we've not forgotten about it, but it's kicked into the long grass for now. So until we come up with a suitable way to add that to the interface, that'll get done eventually. The next one is extensibility device profiles, converting the model, ideally at the same time you convert the physical phone too. That's been asked for a number of times. And we did some initial research, unfortunately a little bit trickier than we expected, but so maybe takes a bit more time and effort, but we've not forgotten about it. And then another one that's come up quite a lot actually, and feel free to ping a question in the Q&A if you're interested. I should probably do a straw poll or something, maybe next WebEx I get around to it. Then one of the more interesting ones that's come up a lot is to migrate phones between clusters, which is very useful, but also very complicated. So what we've kind of come up with a way of doing it with the same CSAM version. So that's kind of our first bite at it when we move ahead with that feature. But basically, if anybody is curious about any of those longer term features, please drop us a message, and that'll help us to make our decisions about which ones to prioritize. Okay, so that gets us onto the demo. So bear with me a second. I should have it all running. There we are. Now, there's probably not going to really be that much to the demo. I'm not going to do any live migrations or anything. We kind of do them on stand anyway. It's quite a physical thing, so it's better to see it live, or get the software installed and do it on your own phones. But the key thing I wanted to cover is these new fields that we have: the phone template, the button template, and the category as well. So I've got a few columns visible here. I'm just going to change that because the category isn't listed. So to add it in, I just click the columns button. You'll see there's a category item here. I just tick that, and it adds it in. And the new fields are category, migration phone template, migration button template. So I can toggle that in and out. Now, I've already set some of them, as you can see here. I've got some categories I've set. I've got some phone templates that I've set, etc. And it's really simple. Let me just pick one at the top here. So I'll pick this guy here. I click, but I'll do 2 at a time, right? I could do a whole bunch, but I don't want to muck up my existing data. I'll just do these 2, like so. I click edit. And because I've got 2 phones, I've got a blank field. So let me just, I'll call this admin as a category. I hit update, and you can see admin's been set there. And on the left hand side, underneath the menu, we have this expandable component here. And just so you know, I probably shouldn't really do this, but what I'm actually running is a very new version of the software, which has extra features in here that you won't see. So please, don't expect to see all those menu items and all these buttons. What you get is just what you'll see when you put your normal MigrationFX license key. This is just how we work. We can actually bake in new features under the hood, and then all we do is unlock them with license keys in the future. So this has got everything kind of turned on in my demo system here. But you can now see that I now have admin category 2 of. I click the checkbox, and it filters to those 2. I uncheck it, and it's back to the normal list there. So it makes it nice and simple to do that. If I want to edit it, I'm just going to choose one device this time. I click edit. I can see the admins there. I'll stick a 2 on the end just to make it different. Click update, and you can see it's now got admin 2 and admin, one against each. Let's put it back the way. I'll do edit. I'll take the 2 off, and this time we'll give it a template. So we'll go for demo. Type Glasgow 8865 template. Now, this is freeform text, so you have to make sure this is, which I've not done, you have to make sure, so that should be 65, you have to make sure that the text here matches exactly the name as it's represented in Call Manager. One of the things that we'll probably look at doing when we move to this more powerful feature that we're working on, the migration profile, is we'll probably make sure you can't get it wrong. We'll have maybe like a drop-down list with the templates from Call Manager and things like that. But as I say, right now it's just freeform text, so make sure you type it correctly. So if I set that phone template this time, I click update, and you can see it's put that back to admin, and it's set that migration phone template, and it's updated the summary. You can also see here, I've got this little summary for migration button template and migration phone template. So I expand them. Doesn't obviously fit too well because I've made the text so long, but you can see here that it's got those how many of each. And again, I can click the checkbox and filter like so, nice and easily. So just makes the administration hopefully that bit simpler. So that's all I really want to cover from a demo perspective. I'm just going to flip back to the slides. Just going to check if there's any questions. I don't think there's really been many. I've not spotted any. Let me open up the panel. That's one of the buttons I was looking for earlier. No, none. That's fine. I'll take no questions. That's no problem with that. And the last thing I'll then do is tell you about the conclusion. So what I would say is we've not actually published it at this point in time. It will be getting published later today. maybe in the next 3 or 4 hours, I suspect. We'll just get a last set of testing we want to do before we do publish it. But we were doing some testing earlier and all looked good, but we're paranoid people, so we like just to be absolutely thorough. But basically, just to make you aware, if not already, you can register for future events at our usual site address, events.unifiedfx.com. It's a free update to version 2 if you've got a valid license key. The existing key, just use that. It'll still work, obviously, as long as it's valid. You can just install it on top of the new version, and as I was trying to describe earlier, it'll even be converting it automatically from 32-bit to 64-bit if you're on a 64-bit system. And basically say it'll be available later today for downloads, and it's just the usual link. The same thing you'll have in your email when you got your license key if you need it for reference. So that's the session for today. Thanks a lot for your time, and hopefully we'll catch you at one of the next events. Take care.